Hello, hello. Welcome to our episode 36 of our Ellie Talks podcast, your insights in the world of sustainable fashion and textiles. Today we have two founders of Studio D around the table, and we have a very specific topic. We are going to talk about your book, Daring to be Sustainable. Welcome, Charlotte and Saartje. Before we start, we always like to start with an introduction to get to know you. Can we maybe get a small glimpse into your personal life? What passionates you and what drives you in general?
Yeah.
Maybe I can start with you, Saartje.
Yeah, I think sustainability always passioned me and is a kind of red line through my career. First, I started in a non-profit sector, working on sustainable food chains. And then I changed to sustainable fashion and textile. I became sustainability manager for a fashion company, Klaas Retail Group, JBC and Meyerlin in that time. And then, I thought it was a totally new sector for me, totally different than food, but actually the challenges related to sustainability within the supply chain linked to human rights and environmental impacts are quite similar, and I was really happy to be with my shoes in the mud, like I would say it like that, to change the system from within the private sector, and so I learned a lot there, and but then I decided to change jobs and to work still on sustainability, but in different sectors. First within the Chamber of Commerce of Vlaams-Brabant, VOCA, but then actually questions from within the textile sector, workwear and fashion were still coming. So I also started on a freelance base. And then within COVID, something special happened, because then I met Charlotte, and apparently we shared that passion on sustainability and on fashion and textiles, and then decided to start with Studio D.
Okay, so Charlotte, maybe for you, what is the personal background?
Yes. Well, there's a similar background. There's a lot of similarities between Saartje and I. We are both political scientists, which I combined with economics afterwards, with the idea to go working within the international relations atmosphere. So I worked with the UN, I worked with Amnesty International, but at that time, as I was younger at least, and I felt like my impact will not be in the field work. It will rather be working within companies. Because if you want to change supply chain, indeed, I think my strength will be there. But I felt like I missed the necessary business experience to do that, and that's why I choose to go working in consulting, business consulting. I've been working in business consulting for 5 years, and then I also had a passion for fashion. And that's why I switched to a big retail group and used to work there for 7 years. And it's also within that group that I could finally bring my experience together and combine my interest in sustainability, supply chain, but also materials, etc., with sustainability. So I helped drafting the corporate group policy then and did the reporting. So that's how I rolled into the more structured way of sustainability action. But in the same period as Saartje, COVID came, we started talking and shared a vision on how we wanted to have our impact from what we organized ourselves.
So how did that match happen and the collaboration?
Well, it was actually some friends of us who brought us in contact. They said, fashion and sustainability, you both share that passion, so you have to talk with each other. And I think it was just before the first lockdown that we had a first meeting in a bar in Leuven, and we talked and talked
that
and talked.
Works.
Yes, that works. With a glass of wine, it works. Yeah. And I think, just after the first lockdown, Charlotte contacted me again, and we had again a good conversation and a third good conversation. every time in a bar, just before closing time, we said, "Oh, actually, we can continue for hours." And yeah, we had a shared vision and yeah, that shared passion. And then it was still COVID and lockdown, and I was a bit like. Okay, I have a career, but also a freelance job, and it's COVID, also 3 children in the house together, and it's so busy. I have to make a choice. And then I went on holiday to Austria, and I decided to jump from a mountain with a parapente, of course, with a parapente. And I said, yeah, if I jump, then I jump literally, but also physically, but also figuratively. And then I decided to say to Charlotte when I come back home, let's start a business together. Just after meeting.
It was in the summer 2020.
Yes.
And since then, we have actually started. We said, like, what would our portfolio be of what could we do? With whom would we like to work? What could our name be? So we all, like, made the necessary steps to do that. And as from that moment, we have been into business, helping companies and organizations. So,
Okay, and what about that name? Where does it come from? Studio D.
Well, the D in Dutch, it means duurzaam, durven, doen. So dare to do sustainable. And in Dutch, it sounds a bit better, maybe. But that's what we are standing for. We want to work with companies. We want to support them, inspire them on how to be more sustainable, how to bring that sustainability within your core business. Dare to do. It also means that we are result-driven and very practical. We don't want to be the consultants who sell a kind of report or just an advice. No, we want to go for actions, for a real transition of a company.
With your boots in the field.
Yes.
yes.
I know that. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the book as well and the process of getting there. Where did the idea pop up for a book?
Oh, actually, it was already during one of the walks we had before when starting Studio Day. Like, oh, it would be nice if one day we had a book, but that would be way too much work. It's difficult to put in the market, for example, as well. We met an editor who asked us, we do see a need for SMEs and companies or people working in companies to have like a hands-on book explaining how to get started with sustainability. I think you, Studio D, would be a good writer for that book. Would you like to make a book with that content? And actually, that's perfectly matched what we do. We had to think, do we have the time for it? It's challenging when working for customers and also writing a book. But in the end, the process was a very nice process. We were helped in a very good way and well supported. And the story came out easier than we had thought as well. So overall, it was a very positive experience. We throughout the line of the book, what do we want to tell? How would we tell it? We want to like to add cases into it, add a lot of stories of other companies to prove that sustainable action is possible and to motivate others to get started as well.
And how long did the process take in the whole?
Maybe in the whole, a small year, something like that. But the writing process was quite short and intensive from January till March. Yes,
April maybe,
and then it's finalizing the book and reduction, etc. But we had a good support from Pelkmans, yes, and we spent way too much hours during the night to finish it. It was intensive, but like you said, a very nice experience.
Yeah. And for whom did you write the book in the beginning? You talked about the SMEs. Was that your target audience from the start?
Yeah. Not only SMEs, also bigger companies. I think the cases that we put in the book are both SMEs and bigger company cases. Also different sectors, not only fashion and textile, but also construction, technology, even tourism, festivals, etc. But we want to offer a hands-on manual, if I may say it like that, for everybody in a company. If you are an HR manager, the manager itself, logistics manager, sustainability manager,
Communications.
purchase manager, etc. For everybody, there is a chapter that we hope is hands-on on how you can start with sustainability.
Okay, great. So about writing a book, what was the most exciting part of doing that, and what was the most challenging part? Maybe I can start with you, Saartje.
The most challenging was maybe just starting with it, because we thought, whoa, we have to fill 200 pages. That's quite a challenge. But like you said, actually, we can write a second book.
Okay. Newsflash for that.
But the most exciting one for me was the launch.
Yeah, the presentation.
And also the moment when, that's actually the first step, writing the book. But then it starts because you want to reach a public with the book. So that's the most exciting part, that it's still going on. Do we reach an audience that we can inspire and help with the
like
book?
last week, we got a message from someone who read the book and said like, oh, it's a really good book. It's very hands-on. It gives like very practical guidelines on how to get started. It gets like the mist out of the woods. So that was a very nice compliment. We were happy with that. And that's exciting. That's nice to see.
Yes, I can imagine. Let's talk about the content a little bit of the book. So there's 8 chapters with all different components about sustainability or sustainable entrepreneurship. Let's maybe zoom out a little bit. What is sustainable entrepreneurship for you?
Difficult to explain in one sentence, I would say.
You can have 2 if you want.
Well, then I will maybe say something about the beginning and the end of the book. The beginning is, the first chapter is about the moral compass that you have as an entrepreneur. With a company, you also have a role within the society, and how do you see your role in society? Is it only about money making, or do you also have a societal role, and do you realize what your impact on the environment and society, also on people in the supply chain, for example, is? And then we, in the next chapters, we tell a lot about how you can start with it, and what are the challenges and how can you overcome it. Till the last 2 chapters is about building not only awareness but also support within the company, because everybody is in favor of sustainability as a citizen, but as a consumer or as an employee, it's not always that easy, because as an employee in a company, sustainability also means that processes needs to change, that the design of a product needs to change, that investments need to be done. So how to create support and how to overcome all these bottlenecks. And you also have to communicate about that externally. Sorry, that were more than 2 sentences. But
it's okay. It's always interesting to see the different views there are when it comes to sustainability, but it's a very global entire view. That's very interesting. Can you maybe give some examples, because you also talk about the benefit of sustainability for innovation in companies. Can you maybe give some examples or 1 or 2 from the book where you experienced that benefit for the companies?
I think an interesting part is looking for partnerships, for example, and not staying just within your company and your own operations, but trying to look for which end stream could be the begin stream of the resource of another one. I think in the book there's several examples of companies working with their waste stream or avoiding their waste stream, or companies thinking of a new product to avoid the full waste of another existing product, for example. And I think a red line in those kind of examples in the book is cooperation and partnerships within the value chain of companies, or even cross-sectoral. I think that's a difference compared to linear working companies.
Yes, and sometimes there are also links that we don't expect. Like, for example, we worked with a company that makes isolation, and we were looking for circular ways for isolation, and we brought them in touch with textile companies. The CEO was very keen on, maybe we can, with lingerie waste, we can fill our isolation. Yes, that would be very motivative for our employees. Finally, that was not the best stream, but we, it was about experimenting on an innovative way on which textile streams were interesting to build up that circular way of insulation. And to bring in touch a building company with a textile company, that kind of innovating collaborations are really interesting.
In that specific case, we had waste streams of 3 different textile companies, which we tested to see like what would be the most appropriate one to use. And in the end, we did have a winner. So those examples are the ones that inspire us actually to see, yes, it is possible.
And it's exactly that way of cooperation, which is actually a little bit the raison d'etre about Ellie.Connect as well. Those unusual suspects where we see the matchmaking indeed has big added value where they wouldn't expect it.
Yes, absolutely.
So definitely. You talk about the book as very practical. I think it's very important to turn vague concepts in a company into concrete actions. How do you start that in a company? What are the important steps to take?
First, well understanding the company, and that's maybe what's it's typical for Studio D, as we were with our feet in the mud, as we know how companies work, how the processes work. That gives us really a strength in what we do, understanding the company, understanding the product, understanding the process of the company, the go-to-market, etc. really helps us in looking at how can we now intervene in the core product or the core action of the company to understand the sustainability risks and opportunities, because we look at both sides. Our main activity is building sustainability strategies with companies. So that's the exercise we do. We look at each step throughout the value chain, upstream, in the own company and downstream, in relation to customers, to see which risks do we see from an environmental perspective, from a social perspective, or even business conduct perspective, throughout that value chain, to see what can we improve or even replace. Do we see circular business model opportunities or social opportunities to tackle? And then we try to make like a full policy document, action plan with owners, deliverables and timings. That's how we get started. And a very important part of what we do is to involve people, both up, but also all the colleagues, the teams who contribute in delivering the projects or the actions.
This is Amélie, Community Manager for Ellie.Connect, interrupting just briefly your favorite podcast to ask you this question. Are you ready to make sustainability a priority? Are you ready to take concrete actions? Ellie.Connect offers you the network, the tools and the content to help you achieve just that. Go to Ellie.Connect.com and register today. But first, enjoy the rest of the episodes.
Yeah, I think the focus on people is also a very important part of it. But sometimes you have organizations or people who are not always convinced about the benefits of sustainability, who still see it as a challenge. How do you tackle that externally or internally?
Well, that's a process. It's not no one moment that somebody changed from sustainability, that's bullshit, to sustainability. So that's a process, and as you said, we start with defining sustainability priorities. On which topics can you really make a difference, an impact as a company? Is it on valorizing your waste streams, or is it on redefining your design process, or is it on the main challenges in your value chain? So we define that priorities, and that's already a process in we organize workshops to go through that process, and if we go into dialogue on that with the management and key people in a company, then awareness raising starts, and they also see more and more the opportunities and the business opportunities in sustainability. We discuss that, and if we go to the phase of defining an action plan, that's also again an opportunity to see where are the opportunities for our company within sustainability. And through that process, we build up knowledge, because knowledge is often also a bottleneck in why people are not fully convinced of what the possibilities of sustainable actions are. Often managers also think that sustainability means it's always more expensive, but sometimes it is. But we think there are also often a lot of opportunities where you can also save money if you are more sustainable as a company, if you save on energy, on water, etc. So it's a process to take people development.
Yeah, and you'll always have some non-believers in a project. It's a reality, or some people who are more critical. You also have to respect that, trying to understand where does that come from. Is it from fear? Is it maybe indeed because of a lack of knowledge? Trying to understand the position of the reason why there's criticism is an important thing of what we do as well, and then we discuss that internally, like how to cope with that. Sometimes it resolves itself, sometimes it doesn't. So then it does require some thought of us on how to cope with that. The good thing is that we do work for a long time with customers. Sometimes change takes time. It's part of a change process. So time also helps in here. With the focus indeed on education, training, taking people along, explaining is a very important part of what we do.
In the book, we also speak about tankers and speedboats. Most of the time, larger companies are more the tankers, and it needs time to change the direction of a tanker, because there are a lot of decision-making processes within a larger company, while SMEs are often, we compare them with speedboats, because if the CEO, if the management is really convinced about the opportunities of sustainable actions, then they can really go straight forward and book results in a really short term. And we're happy to see both movements, from the tankers and speedboats. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe let's talk about one information topic, let's say it. All the letter words that are coming up, the legislation. I know that our listeners are interested a lot as well in what is coming up from them. We talked about supply chains. What about the upcoming legislation on CSDD? Can you maybe explain a little bit what this legislation means, and maybe give some tips to the audience as well in tackling this?
You mean CSDD, yeah?
Yes.
The Due Diligence Directive, yeah.
CSDD, excuse me.
Yes, yeah. I'm very happy to see that legislation, because it was actually always voluntary to companies to do something with that, to take responsibility on respect for human rights in their supply chain, for respect on what is the environmental impact, because we know in textile sector challenges are huge, both social and ecological. So I think it's good there will be a more legislative framework. Of course, it will also means that there is a framework for companies where they have to, it will be obliged, and that's quite a challenge, because there are interesting things in the directive that they need to be compliant with, like, for example, not only to be transparent in the supply chain, and that's the first challenge, of course. Making your textile supply chain more transparent, that's quite a difficult job. But then, as being transparent, you know the risks and also the opportunities where to improve them. But you also have to need to have a policy on how you can monitor and follow up these risks and avoid these risks in your supply chain. And of course, that's not an easy task for companies. And I think I can talk an hour about what you can do to do that. Maybe that's better that
it's just a hint to contact Studio D afterwards.
Yes, but it's not possible. Dare to start with it, because it is possible, step by step, to improve things. Even to set up a compliance mechanism, because that's also something in the directive that will be obliged. Maybe not easy to set up, but we did it with different companies. We helped them to set up a complaints mechanism, and sometimes with less resources than you think, a lot is possible.
Maybe an advice on the sector. I do think that the textile sector has more experience in this topic than many other sectors who will also fall under the directive. So let's share experiences here and learn from each other. I really think that the textile sector can be a teacher to many other sectors.
Textiles as a pioneer.
Yes.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Also, an important remark is that, finally, because in the last phase of the final text of the directive, it changed which type of companies will fall under it, and only bigger companies with more than 1,000 employees and a turnover of more than 450 million euros will fall under the directive. So I don't think that a lot of Belgian textile and fashion companies will really be obliged under the directive. But we do recommend that you take up also due diligence in your...
Or if you're in
any case, there's a waterfall effect towards the smaller companies.
Yes,
absolutely.
I can speak from experience that
and
it's
that's
already
what
the
we
case.
already see as a consequence of the CSRD, for example, that we see a lot of SMEs here being impacted by that. Yeah.
Okay, but let's see it as a positive opportunity indeed to do it in a better way.
I think that's the only objective, to see it as a positive opportunity and not to only see it as a lot of administration coming on. No, there is a way to build on it.
That's a great tip.
Yes.
So let's talk about something different, something beyond the book. Of course, you write books, you advise companies as well in their roadmaps towards sustainability. What about not a roadmap, but a road trip to Ghana? We talked about. What can you tell us a little bit more about that trip that goes beyond your business?
It was me that went to Ghana, and it was a very interesting and also challenging trip. But I'm very happy with the results, because the objective was to gather a number of Belgian fashion CEOs to take them to Ghana. Why to Ghana? A lot of people ask us why Ghana. Well, in Ghana you have a very important second-hand market, and also a lot of the biggest fashion landfills in Africa.
Dump.
It's actually the dumping place of second-hand fashion that comes from Western Europe to Accra. And if you see it with your own eyes, if you experience it, not only from seeing a picture, but seeing it, feeling it, smelling it, if you have seen it, you can't unsee it in the future. So it was about having that experience, but not only learning from it and seeing from it, but the objective was also what can we do together as Belgian fashion brands to tackle the problem. We realized that there is a problem in linear fashion. How can we not only solve the problem of landfills in for example, Africa, but we really looked to the full supply chain, also the upstream supply chain. How can we make up a collective engagement on working also on good working conditions for textile workers in the fashion supply chain. So from the beginning, from the supply chain till the end, how can we make that linear model more circular, and how can we avoid waste by making more qualitative clothings by repair, by recycling, by what are the possibilities? And we took our time in Ghana to discuss that. I was really happy that everybody, that every participant was very open to take up a constructive dialogue, and we managed to end up with a final text where fashion brands made up some engagements for the future, both upstream and downstream, in taking up their responsibility. Okay. And it's a kind of public engagement that they made. So it's publicly published, the charter, and
so we can take them up on that.
Yes. So every company that signed the charter also committed themselves to report every year on the progress they make on the charter.
I think it's a good example of how we look at trying to change things, because it's actually started from an internal discussion. And like, what do we see? What do we want to change? And how could we do that? And it was in dialogue with Flanders DC that Saartje set up the project and see the results. So,
that's the advantage in being having our own company. We can do something with our own ideas, like for example Ghana, but I think also Charlotte, you just with having 3 boys that are playing football, you can explain yourself, but you also had an idea based on your own experience with football clothing.
Yeah, we have a similar initiative. I have piles of polyester football clothing, and I was a bit fed up with that. So we contacted UHA Leuven, a football club, to try to do something about that. So that's also a project we are working on to see how can we rethink the whole model, let's say, intervene there. Yeah,
great. So it's creative thinking from your personal side as well, which is
or from
needed,
our colleagues, like from the team. Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's continue with the future. So what do you think will remain the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs who want to start or continue on this sustainable journey?
It's a good question. It's something we face daily and have to try to find answers to. So I really do think that the economic question is a pertinent one, the business case of sustainability or circularity. And secondly, indeed, the circularity aspect of it. I think the biggest challenge is indeed innovation, rethinking products. Sometimes the solutions are not there yet. How to still stay motivated to try and looking for it, connect others, create partnerships. That would be the solution on the challenge, but I think those are very important challenges we face. And the people, you have the people on board and take them along in the journey.
Okay.
Yeah, especially with fashion companies, we see that big challenge to change from a linear model to a circular model. Brands realize that fast fashion is not the future, is out of fashion, yes. But how to change to a circular way that is also economically profitable, because sustainability is not only about being socially and ecologically sustainable, also that third pillar, it also needs to be economically sustainable, of course. And how to build up economically sustainable circular business models, I think that we see as the most important challenge in fashion and textile in general for the future.
Okay. Any upcoming projects you would like to share? Anything about?
Well,
A new
referring
book?
back, yeah, the brand new book. We do have inspiration for it, but let's just focus on the projects we have and the impact we want to make, and maybe it can grow the idea. But let's first focus on the projects. But referring to the challenge, Ellie, as Saartje was just explaining, we do have a project in which we work together with Ocret to build a platform, actually trying to have some answers to the questions or the challenges we identified right before. We also have the OH Leuven project, which is in the sector of which we hope to get good learnings and advices for other clubs, or maybe like the Pro League to do things with. We'll see. Those are indeed fun, but also challenging projects on the agenda. We have others as well with companies.
Yes, because furthermore, we receive a lot of questions at the moment on the corporate sustainability reporting directive, and the companies have to be ready for that, to report on their sustainable actions by 2026. And there it's really a challenge for us, our drive to make it not only an administrative compliance story, but to take it up as an opportunity to take the whole team within a company in a sustainability story, and that it's not something that you have to
it's not a burden.
Yeah, that it's not a burden, but really an enthusiastic story, and something to go for it together with your team. And that's for us the challenge, to bring that in companies.
Okay, so we're almost at the end of this episode. Of course, we have a large audience listening or viewing the podcast. If you could conclude with one lesson learned or a general call to action that you would like to make, maybe you can readdress the one you just mentioned. Is there anything you would like to share with our Ellie.Connect audience?
Yes, I would say
1 minute.
But there's a very clear one, eh? Yeah, we do.
I would say, try to find the opportunity within sustainability, because there are a lot of opportunities. So it is possible to find a business case on that and to be enthusiastic, and maybe specifically related to the fashion sector. I would say join the Ghana Charter, the Charter on Responsible Supply Chain Management, because I believe that if you do things together, then you will run further. It's also an African proverb. If you run alone, you will run faster. If you run together, you will run further. So and we see and feel that also in reality. So let's go for that.
So call to action to more cooperation. We can definitely support that. Thank you very much for your insightful words. Very interesting insights in the book as well. I wish you good luck with all the projects you still have, and definitely we will also share that mission. So thank you, Saartje and Charlotte, and let's do great things together.
Yes.
Thank you.
If you are a fan of the Ellie Talks podcast, make sure to give us a like or leave a positive review. And remember, there's plenty more inspiring content on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify or YouTube. We hope to see you there.